What's up, nail crew? Let's do some dip on short nails. My sister-in-law let me do her nails. Well, actually she wanted them done for an occasion. She was going away and I thought, oh, this would be perfect to show everybody some tips and tricks on how I dip short nails. So the very first thing that I do is I had her wash her hands about 20 minutes before I started doing them, then let them dry. And now I'm gonna go through and I do a dry prep. So I'm taking the sanding bit, it's a medium coarse sanding bit, and I'm going around, I'm taking off all of the invisible cuticle and then gently roughing up her natural nails. Then I wipe them off with isopropyl alcohol and I go back through and push all of her cuticles back very gently, just to make sure that when I was using the Efile, I got everything that I could with her invisible cuticle. Then I go through and I wipe them off again with isopropyl alcohol just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So since I'm dipping straight on her natural nails with no enhancements underneath, I like to put a layer of dip base or a layer of dip base with clear dip powder right onto her natural nail. This way, I've noticed it helps it for better adhesion. And for her nails, since they're really short, I decided just to do a layer of dip base before I started on her mani. And we're using the color Just Fine. She wanted a nice neutral color from OG Dip Powder. And since her nails are small, I like to go around them with with a toothpick. Right after I pour the dip powder on, this way I make sure that no dip powder gets stuck on her cuticles. If you leave any dip powder on your cuticles stuck there before it dries, when it dries, you're gonna have a better chance of your dip powder lifting, and you definitely don't want that after you're working so hard on your beautiful mani. So I go through, and when you're doing short nails, you wanna make sure that your layers are super thin. But really, when you're doing short nails especially, you don't want like thick little, my one friend calls them chiclets. You don't want those thick chiclet looking nails. You want your dip liquids to be applied as thin as possible. Then once you apply a layer on, I like to go one hand at a time. Once you apply a layer on all 5 nails, I take a stiff nail brush. I get cheap ones from the dollar store or Shein. I think these are from Shein. And then I brush off all the excess powder. That's another really, really good tip for whether your nails are short or long, to not have really thick layers. So then I go through and I push back her cuticles again for each nail on the second layer. And if you notice that I'm doing like on my second, and I'm gonna do a third layer on her as well, that's when I really try to get that beautiful cuticle line. And I push the cuticles back with my metal cuticle pusher and make sure that I'm getting as close as possible to the cuticle without flooding it. Something I've also found when you're doing short dip nails is you want to pour the dip powder over. And it really lets you, like I've been talking about this whole time, to get those nice thin layers. When I first started doing some of my family members' nails who have short nails, I was trying to do the lay flat method with them, and I realized that the dip powder was just getting way too thick. I personally can use the lay flat method, but when I'm doing someone else's nails, especially when they're really short, it is hard for me to do the lay flat method. I do not know why. I definitely do not dip their nails into dip powder. I don't do that to my own. When I'm using chunky glitter, I do lay my nail on top of it, the chunky glitter, and that really helps to get a nice application of the chunky glitter. But when you're doing a beautiful solid like this, pouring over is your absolute best method. Since I didn't do a layer of clear underneath, I wanted to make sure her nails were strong enough to withstand going on vacation, so I did one more layer of the color, and it didn't affect the opaqueness because the dip itself is very opaque, but we wanted just to make sure that she had strength, because I wouldn't be able to refill her nails or redo her nails for another 2 weeks after she went away. So I'm going through now and I'm doing the third layer of dip, and again, I'm making sure that every nail is done really thinly. The liquid application is on very thin, and I pour over the powder and then trace around her cuticles. And if you notice, whenever I'm doing my nails, whether it's on short nails or long nails, I like to start with the dip liquid brush or the gel brush, whatever I'm using. I start back a little bit away from the cuticle and push it back towards the cuticle line. That for me has been huge in not getting flooding. And when I first started, I definitely did not do that, and I could not figure out why I kept flooding my nails until I watched a million YouTube videos and finally heard somebody say to push the liquids back towards your cuticle instead of starting at your cuticle and dragging them down, because that usually ended up with more flooding. So that's another trick that I've learned over the past 2.5 years. And once I finish this layer, once I finish this last color layer, I go through and I do a layer of clear to cap all of her nails. Anytime that I'm doing a mani, and you'll hear me say this on all my videos, that I go through and I'm doing a mani and showing you guys start to finish, I always top every nail with clear. For me, I just like, number one, the strength that it gives. Number two, I like that it protects your nail anytime you're buffing, because I'm an aggressive filer. I am known to be a little bit aggressive and rough on my nail tools, on my filing, and basically anything nail related that I do. Well, in life, I usually end up breaking a lot of things too. So when I use a clear dip powder, it just allows me to, if I accidentally file too much with my e-file, then I'm not bumping into the color. Because I have noticed on occasion, I wildly will use the e-file, which you definitely shouldn't do. I never ever would recommend that. I recommend using the e-file very slowly, very gently. So I finished doing the layer of clear, and then I brush it off just like I do every other layer. And now I'm going to apply activator on all 10 of her nails. And since I'm using OG liquids, the activator takes at least 5 minutes to dry. So we just sat and chatted for a few minutes while the activator dried on all of her nails. And then I'm next gonna go through and I'm gonna do her buffing. And whenever I'm doing my nails or anyone else's, I like to do the buffing first. For me, that just gives you a good base for what you need to shape, how you need to do your shaping, and like seeing how it's nice and smooth. And you can say, okay, where do I need to fix the shaping? Now it's nice and smooth. And with these liquids, you can see I'm barely buffing. Then I'm just gonna go around after that with a 180 grit file and just touch up the edges of her nail. And that's something else that's really important when you're doing short nails. You do not want to majorly mess with the shape until they grow out a little bit. So her nails are just barely over her finger, and I just gently went around with the 100 side. One other thing that I like to do is I bust out my absolute favorite cuticle tool, which is this amazing Bona extra fine bit, and I go around the cuticle line and crisp it up. I have another video which I'll link in the description. This little bit is my secret that I don't keep secret, that I want to share that I love sharing with everybody. This is how I achieve my perfect cuticle lines. I do not quote unquote paint my cuticle lines with the dip liquids perfectly. I can't do it. I'm getting better after 2.5 years, but this is the secret to perfectly clean cuticle lines, is this awesome Bona extra fine bit. So whenever I do anyone else's nails, I also use this bit. I've gotten better at using drills on everyone. So then once I'm done with that, I go through, take a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, wipe off all her nails, and now I'm gonna go through and I top coat. And when I do top coating using the OG liquids, I do one hand at a time. So you can say I applied activator to all 5 nails, and then I immediately go in with the first layer of top coat in quick, even strokes. And I cap the edges, especially since she is wearing these nails, wanted to wear them for a couple weeks, I make sure that I cap the edges with both the first layer of dip top coat and the second layer. Then I look at her hand and see, okay, is it crinkling, which I did off screen. So it's just about 15, anywhere from like 10 to 20 seconds till the first layer starts to crinkle, maybe even a little longer for some people. Once you see that crinkling, you can go in and you apply the second layer. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and check out my next videos. Thanks for joining me, Nail Crew.